I'm glad to see you found a way to share your unique gift, Sunburst. You may be more of a wizard than you think.
You blamed cutie marks and stripped a whole village of theirs, and when Twilight and the others stopped you, you went back in time and almost destroyed Equestria.
You want some pie, Moby? Here it is. I know it's not a real pie, but it's an easy way to think about an author's purpose. What is an author's purpose? A purpose is the reason why something is done. So the author's purpose is the reason why an author writes something. An author's purpose might be to persuade, inform, or entertain. See? P-I-E spells pie. Let's start with this slice. How do you know if the author's purpose is to persuade? When you persuade, you convince someone to believe or do something. An author's purpose might be to persuade you to start or stop doing something, encourage you to go somewhere, or convince you to buy something. An author's purpose might also be to change someone's mind. Well, we really wanted a dog, but Grandpop always said we weren't ready for the responsibility. So we wrote a letter persuading him that we were ready. Dear Grandpop, it's time for us to get a puppy. We promise to love it and take care of it. For months, we've done all of our chores without reminders. We've done them all on time, too. Moby even took on extra chores. We are responsible and ready for a dog. Love, Mia, Annie, and Moby. The letter worked. When authors persuade, they give information and their opinions to convince you. Ask yourself, is the author trying to get you to do something or change your mind? Your job as a reader is to figure out what they want you to do, think, or change. Then you can decide whether or not they've convinced you. Great question, Moby. How do you know if the author's purpose is to inform? When you inform, you give information. An author's purpose might be to inform and share facts that you can understand and learn. Newspaper articles, textbooks, guidebooks, and even instructions are all pieces of writing that inform. The news gives us information and explains what's happening in our communities. This book shares facts about vampire bats. Once you figure out that an author's purpose is to inform, pay attention to definitions, examples and descriptions, illustrations, maps, and graphs and charts. This graph shows the number of calls different bats make at night. The author shares all this information to help you understand the subject. Good question, Moby. How do you know if the author's purpose is to entertain? This is one of my favorite comic books. Aliens are turning Earthlings into pizza. Only Superbot can save the whole planet. I love this book because it's silly and fun. When you entertain, you bring joy or interest. I know the author's purpose of this book is to entertain because it makes me laugh and smile. I get more and more excited as I read it. Books, short stories, poems, and songs can all entertain. So can jokes. But sometimes an author's purpose isn't to make you laugh. Some pieces of writing might scare you or make you feel a little sad. Some stories might even surprise you. Right, Moby. When an author entertains, they can make you feel different emotions. The author can describe a whole new world that interests you. Once you figure out that an author's purpose is to entertain, pay attention to the characters, setting, plot, and the theme or message of the piece of writing. This will help you understand the story. Good point, Moby. An author can have different purposes in the same piece of writing. In this writing, the author gives information about a movie. In Lunch Adventure, someone takes 3 hours to eat a sandwich. 3 hours! How is that an adventure? I can eat a sandwich in 5 minutes. Why did I watch this movie? What is the meaning of life? Please don't watch this movie. It's really funny, so I know the purpose is to entertain. But the writer's also trying to convince the reader not to watch the movie. When you read, think about the author's purpose. It'll help you understand and enjoy the writing. It's as easy as pie.
What are pirates afraid of? The dark.
I'm writing a story. Do you want to hear what I have so far? For Moby, my best friend who's always ready for an adventure. Thank you. For the spider whose web sparkles in the sun. Thank you. For cupcakes with frosting that gets all over my face. Thank you. I got ideas for my own story after I read Gracias, Thanks, by Pat Mora. In the book, the main character thanks his family and friends. And he shows gratitude towards things like cozy pajamas and chocolate. I love this book because it helps me remember things that make me happy. Many of Pat Mora's books are about finding joy and love all around us. Good question, Moby. What was Pat Mora like growing up? Pat Mora was born in El Paso, Texas, which is near the border with Mexico. Her grandparents were from Mexico, so she grew up speaking both Spanish and English. A person who is bilingual is able to speak 2 languages. Pat and her family are bilingual. Together, they practiced traditions and observed holidays celebrated in both Mexico and the United States. As a kid, Pat was surrounded by books and loved to read. She enjoyed getting pulled into a story and imagining different worlds. Later, Pat Mora became a teacher. She encouraged students to explore books, just the way she did as a kid. Then she began writing her own stories and poems. I love reading her books because she writes about many different topics. How does Pat Mora explore family and culture in her books? An inspiration is someone or something that gives a person an idea about what to do or create. Pat Mora often gets inspiration for stories from her own family. In I Pledge Allegiance, the main character's great aunt becomes a U.S. citizen. The book is based on Pat Mora's aunt, who moved from Mexico and became a U.S. citizen. Pat's aunt was also the inspiration for a birthday basket for Tia. Tia means aunt in Spanish. In the story, the main character gathers her Tia's favorite things to make a thoughtful gift. Moby, who inspires you to write about them? I'm sure Grandpop would love to read your story. In My Singing Nana, a grandmother and her grandkids are supposed to perform a song. But the grandmother starts losing her memory. So the kids find ways to help her remember. Pat Mora got the inspiration for the book when her parents started forgetting things and needed help. She also gets story ideas from Mexican culture and traditions. The Remembering Day, El Día de los Muertos, is about a special holiday that's held in the beginning of November. People honor those who've passed away and keep their memories alive. In The Beautiful Lady, Our Lady of Guadalupe, a grandmother shares the story behind a special feast celebrated each December in Mexico. I love these books because they help me learn about different experiences and understand people's traditions and cultures. You're right, Moby. It is cool how she brings stories from her life and Mexican culture into her writing. She also gets inspiration for stories and poems from the land and food around her. How does Pat Mora explore food and nature in her books? Have you ever wondered about vanilla? In Yum, Que Rico, Pat Mora writes poems about different foods and explains where they came from and how they're used. I learned that the Totonac people of Mexico figured out how to turn vanilla into flavoring, perfume, and medicine. They even use it to ward off insects. You can tell that Pat Mora got inspiration from the fruits and vegetables we grow and eat. Growing up in the Southwest, the desert always held a special place in her heart. This Big Sky and The Desert is My Mother are books of poems that celebrate her love. I know, the desert isn't actually her mother. But the desert gives her food, medicine, and warm hugs, just like a caring mother. Oh, this book is written in both English and Spanish. How does Pat Mora use languages in her writing? Pat Mora is proud of being bilingual, and her books are available in both Spanish and English. She often mixes both languages in the same sentence. In Delicious Hullabaloo, different animals come together to make a meal. Listen to how she uses the two languages together. Cerezas dulces, Parrita sings, mouthfuls of red roundness for our fiesta evening. I love the way the words flow together. They sound like a song. These stories and poems make me feel so excited about reading. Pat Mora calls this feeling book joy. She started a special day called Children's Day Book Day, where people in the community celebrate books. This day honors children, just like El Día del Niño, which is celebrated in Mexico. She hopes to spread book joy and the love of reading to people of all ages. Don't you love getting lost in a good book, Moby? Moby? Why do cows wear bells? Because their horns don't work.